The Nawao of Waialae Trail. It was a cool Friday evening when a group of five seasoned local hunters from Kekakawai embarked on their weekend hunting trip, heading deep into the uplands of Waimea Valley. The full moon hung bright in the sky, casting a soft, silvery glow over the rugged landscape as they made their way up to Waialae Trail. Traveling by moonlight had always been their tradition, a way to make the long uphill trek easier for them, their mules, and their loyal hunting dogs. With the trail illuminated by the moon, they moved steadily, the only sounds the rhythmic clop of mule hoofs, the occasional snort from the animals, and the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. They were well prepared for the hunt, rifles slung over their shoulders, packs full of provisions, and a sense of camaraderie that had been built over years of hunting in these mountains. Those seasoned in their craft, the hunters held deep respect for the land and the mysteries of the Hawaiian forests. As they ascended deeper into the dense forest of Waimea Valley, the familiar sounds of the night forest seemed to fade. The mules grew restless, their usually steady pace faltering. One of the hunters, Kaleo, noticed his dog, a trusted companion on every hunt, was now staying unusually close to his side, tail tucked and ears switching as if sensing something unseen. A shiver ran down his spine, though he quickly shook it off, attributing the unease to the eerie silence of the forest. Something feels off tonight, muttered Billy, one of the younger hunters in the group. The others nodded in agreement, but they pushed forward. They had a destination to reach before dawn. It wasn't long before the hunters began to feel a presence, something watching them from the shadows. The trees on either side of the trail seemed to close in, the shadows dancing in the moonlight, but there was nothing in sight. Still, the feeling was unmistakable. As they continued uphill, the silence was broken by a soft but distinct rustling in the bushes to their left. The group froze. James, the oldest and most experienced of the hunters, slowly raised his hand to signal everyone to stop. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice steady but laced with caution. No reply came, but the rustling continued. One of the mules suddenly bucked and let out a nervous bray, pulling hard on its reins. The hunters exchanged uneasy glances, hands gripping their rifles a little tighter now. Kaleo's dog, usually brave and eager to chase down wild boar, whimpered softly and refused to move forward. A faint movement caught Mark's eye, a flash of something tall and humanoid just beyond the tree line. He couldn't make out much in the moonlight, but it was enough to know that whatever it wasn't human. "Did you see that?" Mark whispered, his voice barely above a breath. Before anyone could respond, the figure moved again, this time closer, and now there were several of them. The hunters' hearts raced as they watched in disbelief. Tall, shadowy forms, their movements, fluid and graceful, seemed to merge with the forest itself. These weren't animals. They weren't men either. "They're the Nawao," James whispered, his voice filled with reverence and fear. The others had heard the stories before, the ancient beings of the forest, said to be part of the land itself, living in the uplands long before Polynesians ever arrived. But none of them had ever encountered them firsthand until now. The Nawao moved silently through the trees, their eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight, their forms blending seamlessly with the forest. They didn't seem to be threatening, but their presence was overwhelming, commanding the hunters' full attention. For a moment, the air was thick with an unspoken understanding. The Nawao didn't belong to the world of men. And the hunters, despite their years of traversing these mountains, were mere visitors in the wilderness these beings called home. The Navajo had existed for centuries, living in perfect harmony with nature, and had chosen to disappear from the world of humans, retreating into the deepest parts of the forest where few dared. Suddenly, one of the figures stepped forward from the shadows, his face partially visible in the moonlight. It was human like, but there was something otherworldly about it. Its skin seemed to shimmer like the leaves in the breeze, and his eyes, though gentle, held the weight of centuries. The Naval stared at the hunters for a moment, then motioned toward the trail ahead. Understanding the gesture, James nodded slowly. The Naval were motioning for the men to pass through. Without a word, the hunters resumed their journey, moving quietly and steadily up the trail. They remained silent, their hearts still racing, not daring to speak until they reached their campsite over 2 miles away from their encounter. When they finally arrived at the campsite, the tension in the air seemed to lift. As the hunters began to set up, something remarkable happened. They had a productive hunt, almost as if the Naval themselves had sent the wild boar to them. The animals appeared in abundance, seemingly driven towards the hunters, who were both relieved and amazed by their good fortune. What just happened? Billy asked, his eyes wide with wonder as they prepared their catch. James looked at the group, his expression a mix of awe and gratitude. It's as if the Naval guided the boar to us. Maybe they accepted us last night, allowed us to hunt on their land, he said quietly. The hunters nodded in silent agreement. They knew that what they had experienced was more than just luck. It was a gift, perhaps even a blessing from the ancient guardians of the forest. From that night on, none of the hunters would ever venture into the uplands of Waimea Valley without remembering the night they encountered the Nawao and the mysterious bond they shared with the land.